we could appreciate each other's passion and differences. And based on that synergy, we saw a possibility of creating a bigger future together. Let me go back to Scott and his passion. Scott had already gone through the first 2 steps of the cash and control process. In step 1, he had used the back door to liberate his biggest entrepreneurial vision. And he had shifted his goal from $15 million in 5 years to $150 million in 5 years. He had also gone through the second step, which was the mosaic approach, where he got confident on how to finance his known expenses. Now he was poised for the third step, where he was securing equity that wanted him in control for his equity safety net. Step 3, the front door, is based on public declaration of the company you are committed to create. Let me digress for a moment. Remember I told you about Jim and I meeting? We were both 35 years old when we met, and most of our friends were already divorced. Marriage was not a good prospect. But standing in our future, Jim and I both made a public declaration as we announced our engagement to be married. Scott also made a public declaration about the $150 million company in his future. Scott morphed his 2-page corporate resume into a 15-page investor blueprint. Now, an investor blueprint is not at all like a traditional business plan. An investor blueprint is actually a public declaration of the company you are committed to create. In this case, Scott was going to create, based on his synergy and the passion of his synergy with that of the right investor. I circulated Scott's $150 million blueprint to selected investors using the orchestrated front door approach. And it was a dazzling first impression in the marketplace, as Scott attracted just the right investors. Very quickly, Scott actually attracted and had face-to-face meetings with 8 investors who all caught his passion. 5 of them immediately offered him exactly the number of dollars he needed as equity. But you know what? Of the 5, all of them were for different percentage ownerships of equity for the same number of dollars. The highest valuation was almost twice the lowest. So I suggested to Scott, don't take any of those 5. We created a 6th term sheet with the highest valuation and the best terms and conditions. And then I suggested to Scott that he go ahead and invite the investor he liked best. So who do you think he invited?
Those terms and conditions.
The guy who came in with the highest valuation is exactly the one. But you know what? It wasn't because of the highest valuation. It was because that was the investor who was so passionate about Scott's future, and he kept telling him about all these people he was going to help him with and all this other stuff, and he was just really excited. You see, getting the highest valuation is not just a good idea, it's imperative. It's a mathematical confirmation that you have identified the right investor for you. One who shares your passion and who sees opportunity where others see risk. But you know what? Scott really liked that feisty investor who came in with the lowest valuation. And so he actually spent some time with that second investor. And in the process, changed the perception of that investor relative to some risks that that investor had used to depress Scott's valuation. And you know what happened? That feisty little investor changed his valuation and came all the way up to the highest. Scott was so excited, he invited that investor in as well. Scott ended up with 2 passionate investors, control of his company, and 2 equity safety nets. One, to protect the unknowns for his company. The other was some liquidity for he and his partner. Scott's older partner took a lot of the shekels off of the table to address his security issue. And that shifted the ownership and control to Scott, who was liberated to be able to grow his biggest vision. It was a synergy where 1 + 1 = 10, a force multiplier. Using the front door, Scott was successful in attracting capital that really shared his passion and wanted him in control of the company he really wanted to build. Scott achieved extraordinary results. Not $150 million in 5 years, $100 million in 1 year. Your head must be swimming. I've given you a lot of information about possibilities for your company and opportunities for you. Do you feel paralyzed? I can empathize with that. When I was 4 years old, I wanted to be a ballerina. And my parents supported me in that, traveling back and forth to Manhattan several times a week for lessons and performances. And then one day, I woke up and I had really bad pains in my legs. I couldn't move my legs. I was paralyzed. Fortunately, at age 14, surgery was able to remove a benign tumor wrapped around my spine. But the doctors advised my parents that they couldn't be assured that I would ever walk again. Fortunately, my parents never told me that. Instead, when I woke up from a 5-hour surgery, my parents were dangling my toe shoes from their pink ribbons over my head. Dear, you have some work to do. She was right. I had to learn how to crawl before I could even walk with full leg braces. Rehab was long and tough, more than 3 years, and the progress wasn't always obvious. I could hear the Firebird Suite, but I couldn't dance to it. But giving up my passion was not an option. I discovered ballroom dancing, and now I enjoy Glenn Miller and the big bands. Then it happened again. This time it was my business that was paralyzed. You remember Armchair Traveler? My investment partner suddenly cut off my funds. It wasn't about the money. It was that somebody else was controlling my vision, my company's destiny, me. I had to crawl back again. This time I learned how to get cash and keep control. And I went on to create subsequent entrepreneurial ventures, because giving up my passion was not an option. And giving up your passion isn't an option either. Before I open it up for questions, let me summarize the 3 critical concepts underpinning the cash control system. First and foremost, you, the entrepreneur, not financing, is the scarce resource. Use the back door to ignite your passion and reconnect with your inner entrepreneur. 2, there is no single financing solution. Use the mosaic approach to divide your financing needs, and with each piece you put in place, conquer the next, so that you are never hostage to capital. 3, equity is your cheapest safety net. Use the front door to ignite investors' passion, so that you can get credit for your future today. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
The example that you gave for Mosaic was driven by somebody selling a product. With the economy moving more towards a service-based economy, so you gave vendor financing, somebody paying a down payment for an actual hard good. Those 2 things are somewhat eliminated. Does that change? I mean, how does that affect the Mosaic if you've eliminated 2 of the 5?
You really haven't eliminated anything. A service is just another way of looking at your product. And to be perfectly honest, most products that you think of as widgets actually sell the service component. And there are also productized versions of services. As an example, I have a service, but I have productized it as well.